In the sacred spaces of worship and prayer, music holds a special place. It uplifts our spirits, brings us closer to God, and unites us as a community. In schools, music becomes a vehicle for teaching and nurturing faith, enhancing classroom prayer and creating meaningful liturgical experiences. To ensure that the beauty of music continues to enrich our worship and educational experiences, it's important to do our part. By obtaining a One License music license and reporting our song usage, we actively support our composers in their ministry. Just as composers labor to bring forth their inspired creations, we have a responsibility to exercise justice and ensure they receive fair recognition and compensation. Sometimes, the journey of a composer can be arduous and demanding to ensure the lyrics are liturgically and scripturally sound, and the melody is inspiring and accessible and memorable for the congregation. They often face challenges along the way. Yet they persevere, seeking divine guidance and inspiration. It's a relief and a blessing when the composition is completed. But the journey doesn't end there. The music often needs refinement based on feedback from various church authorities. They meticulously refine and polish their work. Finally, the composition is ready, and then begins the process of sharing their music with the world through publication. Copyright licenses return royalties to the creator of the music. However, in reality, the income from royalties can be surprisingly low, especially if we do not report the song usage. Generally, composers of church music believe that music is their ministry, and many depend on the income from licenses to support them and their families. But by buying a One License license and reporting song usage, we can make a difference. Having a license is only the first step. You must report the usage of your hymn and song titles, including psalm and mass settings, each and every time you use them. If you miss this step, composers do not get paid. Let us exercise justice and make sure the composers are honoured and rewarded for their musical contributions to our faith communities. Thank you for supporting composers and ensuring that the music we use in our liturgies and prayer services is grounded in fair and just practices. Remember, purchase a license from One License and always report your song usage. Together, let us continue to celebrate the beauty of sacred music that enriches our faith communities and our worship. Visit One License at www.onelicense.net for more information.
Hello, welcome. Welcome to One License 101 Live. Welcome to all our license holders. I'm Siobhan McGuire, Assistant Manager here at One License. And for the second year in a row, thanks to feedback from license holders like you, our annual new user webinar during the first quarter of the year takes on this new format. Several webinar opportunities throughout the year designed to assist license holders at all comfort levels. Today's One License 101 webinar was designed with newer users in mind, with some review for our more experienced license holders. We'll be looking at some recent website developments as well. And then throughout the year following, you'll be invited to join us for 201 and 301 level webinars, where we'll dig even deeper into our service and offer additional tips and tricks for our more experienced users. Our goal today is to introduce new license holders to our service, to review some recent website updates, to answer as many of your questions as possible and to share a variety of tips and tricks for navigating our site and for making the most of your license permissions. Our webinar today is being recorded, and we'll be sharing that recording in our upcoming February newsletter, as well as on our blog, news.onelicense.net. And that blog site is an excellent resource for all the latest news from One License. David, whom you'll meet very soon, will be sharing several helpful links from that blog in our chat throughout the webinar today. Right now, I'd like to introduce Madison Connor, who will share a few housekeeping notes for our conversation today.
Everyone, whether you are with us live today or are watching the recording, we are so glad that you're here, and we hope that the information that we are sharing in this webinar will help you to get the most out of your One License permissions. A few notes as we begin our time together. This webinar will be no longer than 1 hour in length. All you need to participate is speakers or headphones so that you can hear us. No need to have a microphone or video camera since you are an audience member today. Feel free to grab a writing utensil if that would be helpful to you, or maybe open up a Google Doc so that you can take some notes throughout the webinar today if you'd like. Our time today is divided into 4 parts. First, we will share some One License background and offer some basic information about copyright. Then we'll talk about how to read copyright information, what to pay attention to, and what to report under your license permissions. Next, we'll offer up some tips for searching our system. Again, what to pay attention to when comparing your score or the page in your hymnal with the results of your database search. If you're a longtime license holder, you'll have noticed some recent updates to the website. For instance, navigating to the report usage page has been simplified, and we'll mention those updates as we encounter them today. Finally, we'll wrap up with a live question and answer session at the end. To tell us a little bit more about our Q&A session, I would like to introduce our bilingual ministry specialist, David Taba.
Thanks, Madison. Hi, everyone. If you're here with us live, you can click on the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen and then type your question directly into that box. We'll be monitoring that throughout our time together, and we will do our very best to answer each of those questions live. Over the last few days, we've also received questions from some of you through our online ticketing system. So please know that we'll be including many of those questions as well. Please note that for certain types of questions, we may need more information from you, in which case we'll ask you to send us an email. If you're watching the recording or have a question that is specific to your organization, our online ticketing system is going to be the best and fastest way for you to get in touch with the One License team. You can email us at info@onelicense.net or log into your account and submit your question through the contact link in the upper right-hand corner. One feature of our ticketing system is that if you're logged into your account and you send us a message through that contact link, all of your account information, such as your license number and the organization name, will automatically be sent to us along with your request. And that's really helpful for the One License team and allows us to find your account much more quickly. Feel free to write webinar in the subject line of your message and know that we'll respond by email, typically within 2 to 3 business days. Back to you, Siobhan.
Great. Thanks, David. All right, here we go. I'm going to screen share. Okay, great. Thanks again, David. Okay, at One License, we focus on an educational and proactive approach to copyright usage. Our team is made up of church workers, composers, and musicians, and we know how confusing copyright can sometimes feel. So we want you to feel confident that you understand copyright basics and know what you need to do in order to follow copyright law. Our song database currently has nearly 260,000 titles, and we partner with more than 300 member publishers. Here you can see a few of our premier member publishers. These are some of our larger publishers and are probably names that are familiar to you. If you are new to using our service, you may still be wondering just what does One License really do? So One License is primarily a reporting service and secondarily a downloading service. Based on your license type, you can report your music usage, And if you have the reprint license, you can also download files for congregational reprints. Keep in mind that our member publishers retain full control of their catalogs and the data that they enter into our system. So not every congregational piece will include a download. Okay, let's talk a little bit about copyright. Copyright is a form of intellectual property law. It is designed to protect any type of artistic medium. So songs, poems, drama, literature, computer software, whatever the medium, it must be in a fixed form. So you can't copyright an idea. Anytime you utilize a copyrighted work in a new way, for example, reprinting it in a worship aid, putting it on a projection screen, or including it in an online worship service, the composer, the text author, any other owners of that creative work deserve to be compensated for that usage. And so how exactly does one license make that happen? That's where your reports come in. And this is why we ask for 100% compliance with those reports. We use your reported titles to calculate and disperse royalties to our member publishers, who then pay them to the artists, composers, authors, and arrangers. For all of us here at One License, being able to accurately pay out those royalties is a justice issue. We want to be sure that we are appropriately supporting the creative work of the composers, authors, and other artists who inspire our music choices. And we want to make sure that they are able to continue composing and contributing that creative work so that we can continue to use their works in our communities. Since you're joining us for this webinar today, it's likely that you already hold a license with us, but licensing needs can change depending on how the worship life of your organization changes. We recommend that you reassess your needs each year when your license comes up for renewal to ensure that you have the correct license for the way that your organization is worshiping. Except for our school licenses, all of our annual term licenses are based on average weekly attendance in person and online of your organization. What we're really looking for here is the size of your organization. Our categories aren't based on usage amount. Rather, we're looking at the size of your organization. So we want to know your average weekly attendance for all your in-person services and average views for all online services that take place in a typical week. In addition to being a justice-based pricing model, where larger organizations pay more than smaller organizations, those average weekly attendance numbers give us a good idea of the size of your organization and ensure you that you are also covered for those large attendance days like Christmas and Easter, as well as for occasional services such as funerals or weddings or other special services throughout the year. We will talk a lot more about reporting later on in our time together, but while I have these slides up, I want to show you that this is a helpful graphic for displaying your permission and licensing information. And you'll find this with your license documents in the welcome packet. So you can download that from your account at any time. So when we talk about displaying permissions, this is what we're referring to. This information would be printed in your worship aid or displayed as a slide on your projection screen if you're reprinting copyrighted music in those ways. This is also the information that would be included in your online services. As you can see on the slide, you want to list copyright information like the title, the composer and or text author, the copyright year, the publisher, and also your licensing information. So that shows the type of usage, the reprint and or podcast streaming, and your individual license number. More about where to find your license number in a few minutes. Being able to find that information, being able to list that information in your online service, either in the video description or in a comment, or in both places, will help you cut down on the number of claims and strikes on your online services. Take a look in the chat. David is dropping some very helpful links from our blog on these topics. Okay. And then in just a moment, we're going to talk about exactly what needs to be reported and how to find the copyright details on your score or in your hymnal that you need in order to report. But before we do that, Madison, what kinds of questions are we receiving at this point?
We received a question earlier, again, about if this webinar is going to be recorded for future reference, and the answer is yes. The webinar will be recorded and it will be posted on our blog. You can also look out for it in our February newsletter later this month. In addition, on our blog now, you can find our 2024 webinars, both 101, 201, and 301. So if you would like to access those now, you are welcome to. And I will grab one more question before I'll hand it back over to Siobhan. We had the question, does my annual license cover funerals, weddings, or confirmations, or do I need an additional license for those events? With our annual license, weddings, funerals, and these one-time events are included as long as they are hosted by the license holder, which would be the named organization on your account, and they do not exceed the category attendance range. We consider these events a part of your typical parish life, so they would be included. If you have a special event with a really large attendance that you're expecting, then you might want to explore some other options like our single-use license or event license, and you can always reach out to us if you have more specific questions about an event that your organization is hosting. And Siobhan, I'll hand it back over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Madeline. Madison, that's so helpful. Okay, so what do I report, and how do I figure that out? So you want to report copyrighted works that you're using in a new way. So purchase of a hymnal or a score only allows you to use that purchased hymnal or score for an in-person worship service. And then if you're reprinting the text or the tune, or if copyrighted works will be heard in an online worship service, you need the copyright holder's permission for that additional or any other additional usage. If you're reprinting the copyrighted text and or tune for your congregation on a screen or in a worship aid or a bulletin, you report that as reprint. And if a copyrighted organ prelude or choral anthem will be heard in your online worship service, then you report that podcast streaming usage. So for in-person, it's about what you're reprinting. But for online worship, you need permission for any and all copyrighted music that will be heard in the video. And also online, if you're putting images of the copyrighted text or melody on the screen, if it can be seen in the video, that's another form of reprint. Another way of thinking about it, we sometimes say that reprint permission is for what you can see, and podcast streaming permission is for what you can hear. So let me share my screen here. All right, so copyright claims are song specific, not resource or hymnal specific. That is, the copyright information that's associated with an individual song is not affected by what hymnal or other publication it might be published in. The copyright claim stays with the song. So for example, let's use the ELW. Let's use the Evangelical Lutheran Worship hymnal as an example. So Augsburg published that hymnal, and they hold a number of copyrights. A number of their copyrighted works are in that ELW hymnal. But there are also copyrights from other copyright holders, from other one license member publishers such as GIA, OCP, Hope, and Northwestern, but also from other copyright holders who are not one license member publishers. And this would also be true for organ and keyboard collections. So just be sure you're paying attention to the copyright claim on the individual song itself, not just the copyright claim on the book or the collection that it's published in, right? Copyright claim stays with the copyrighted work. Most hymnals will have those copyrighted details at the bottom of the hymnal page for you, like in this example here, but you may need to look in the back of the hymnal or collection for those details. So here we want to know the title of the work and the contributors and the copyright claim. And as we're collecting all that information, we see that there's a copyright claim only on the text. So we're not concerned about the tune Engelberg or about Stanford as a contributor. We're only concerned about the copyrighted element, the text, Dolores Duffner's To Be Your Presence. So we've got a title, we've got a contributor, and we've got a copyright claim. And the copyright claim tells us that the copyright holder is GIA Publications. So with regard to Engelberg, so if there's no copyright claim, that's a good indicator that it's in the public domain, especially if it's in a commercially published resource, especially one that's been published recently. But 70 years after the death of the creator is a time when copyrighted works can move into the public domain, but that is just a guideline, a rule of thumb, and the main thing is to look for that copyright claim. David is dropping a link to Understanding Public Domain from our blog in the chat. One more thing that I want to say about this is it's not unusual for multiple tunes and text combinations to work together. And so if you have a copyrighted text and a copyrighted tune, you may need to make two reports, one for the text and one for the tune. You may need to consider those copyright claims separately. Here's an example of this is the hymn God is Here, and here is the copyright information about that. This is an example of two different contributors, one for the text, Fred Pratt Green, and one for the music, Cyril V. Taylor for his tune, Abbott's Lee. And they each have their own copyright claim on them. But this is an interesting point that they're both copyrighted by by Hope Publishing, who happens to be a one license member publisher. And we'll see later that in that case, they have the option of, including that in a single record in the database. Okay. Another example would be a copyrighted arrangement of Bernadette Farrell's Christ Be Our Light. So Bernadette is the text author and the composer, and then we've got an arrangement by Joel Rainey. So in this case, choral arrangements can sometimes involve an additional step, as can instrumental arrangements, an additional thought, because you want to pay particular attention to the underlying text and tune. And in this case, Bernadette Farrell wrote both the text and the tune, and they're still copyrighted. And so it's actually her text and tune that you would report to one license and not Rainey's arrangement. An arrangement of a copyrighted work is known as a derivative arrangement. And so they don't qualify to earn usage royalties because the original copyright is still in force. That is, Rainey's arrangement doesn't need to be reported at one license because Farrell's original text and tune are still under copyright. And so you would report Farrell's Christ Be Our Light, the text and the tune, at one license and not Rainey's arrangement. But let's make up an example. Let's say that Rainey did an arrangement of Silent Night, and both the text and the tune are in the public domain. So in that case, the copyright that you'd be paying attention to is Rainey's original work. The underlying text and tune of Silent Night are not under copyright, so Rainey could earn usage royalties for his arrangement of those public domain works. We have a helpful webinar devoted to this topic of derivative arrangements, and it looks like David has already shared it in the chat. So that'll be helpful. And then the bottom line is just pay attention to all those details, all the words and the details, the copyright holder, the contributor, the publisher, etc. David's dropping another piece in the chat, another link on one license copyright terminology that you may find helpful. All right, so once you've found all that copyright information, the title, the contributors, the copyright holder, then you can move over to our website. For that, so you can search the system for that title, and we'll talk a little bit more about searching. Sometimes a member publisher administers the copyright claim on behalf of someone else, and that's explained in the link that David just shared as well. Madison, do we have any questions so far?
Yes, we do. We received this question here on, we recently purchased our license, but have been live streaming our services since 2021. Are our past videos covered? So that's a great question. And the answer is potentially, if you reach out to us, we can backdate the license and prorate that invoice to ensure that your earlier videos and copyright usage is covered. So if you find yourself in that situation, just let us know. Go ahead and send us the date of your first online video, and we can get you squared away to make sure your past usage is covered. So great question there. Another question we received, what do I do if the copyright holder is not a one license member publisher? In that case, we would recommend reaching out to that copyright holder directly. So I recommend just a simple Google search. You can type in Google the name of that copyright holder, and hopefully you'll be able to find a phone number or an email address, and you can reach out to them and let them know that you're seeking permission, and they'll be able to guide you from there. And let me see, I'm going to grab one more. Can you clarify why some hymns in the Breaking Bread hymnal are not covered, even though OCP is one of your member publishers? So another great question. You'll want to note that copyrights are associated with individual songs and not the book or hymnal that they're published. So for this case, and as always, you'll want to examine that 3-element year, name, and claim to copyright found at the bottom of the hymnal page to see who that copyright holder is. So again, just because it's in that OCP hymnal does not mean that that's the copyright holder. You'll always want to take a look at that claim to copyright.
Thanks so much, Madison. Great. So here's a little bit about searching for titles in the database for using our system. As I mentioned earlier, we're primarily a reporting service and only secondarily a downloading service. So the reprint license covers only the congregational part, the text and tune for the congregation. Music for instrumentalists, choirs, etc., cannot be copied under the license. They must be purchased directly from the member publisher. The reprint license doesn't allow you to reproduce piano accompaniments or guitar chords or choral parts, instrumental parts, only the congregational part. So for reprints, if a member publisher has provided a downloadable resource, those are going to be just the congregational part, text or text and tune. You might see some 4-part downloads available in our system for those congregations that sing in parts. Remember, those downloads are provided by the member publisher, and the member publisher decides which files to provide for our license holders. So you've looked at your copyright information on your hymnal page or your score, and you've identified the title, the contributors, and the copyright holder, and you have confirmed that the copyright holder is a one license member publisher. So now you need to find the title in our system. So let's see here. For the copyright holders, you're going to navigate to your home screen and select member publishers, and then you can search for that member publisher here. And then once you've done that, you want to go to report usage. So here we are on the main screen when you log into your account, and right there is your report usage button. And when you do that, you want to search by title and contributor's last name. And then you want to look at your results here. So this very first result, we have a match for title to be your presence, for contributor Dolores Duffner, and for copyright holder GIA Publications. And we also see over here that it's approved for reprint and also for podcast streaming. And if you hold the practice track, then you also have permission to make commercial and non-commercial practice tracks. So the one thing that we want all of our license holders to know is that the best way to search our database for most things is to use this title field. So when you first log in, you see its title. When you first select report usage, the title field is for title, tune, SKU number, or composer. And we want you to know that the best way to search the database is to type the title and the contributor's last name into that title field. That title contributor search will return the most likely matches in the first 5 or 6 results. If you are, searching screen after screen, scrolling through, trying to find a match, you need to do a better search. And the better search is title and contributor. There are a number of other ways to search our system, but for most things, for most congregational hymns, choral works, and instrumental works, the title contributor search will yield a match in the first 5 to 6 returns, if not the first. And David has probably already dropped a link into the chat for our 2024 201 level webinar, where we discussed when you might want to use other search strategies. So remember that contributor and copyright holder may not be the same entity. So Dolores Duffner is the text author. She's the contributor, but she is not the copyright holder. GIA Publications is the copyright holder. And we saw that information on the hymnal page earlier, right? And that's what we're looking at. So we have a match for title and contributor. It's not unusual for the copyright year to be different from your hymnal or score and the database, and you're not concerned about that. You need a match for title, contributor, and copyright holder, and other details on the hymnal page or score page, other details in the database record are not so important when we're just trying to find the match. It's not uncommon as well for copyright holders for copyrights to change hands and for the copyright holder to be different from your hymnal to the database. If you have a match for title and contributor and the copyright holder is different, that might be a place to use your judgment. Is this the same song and the copyright has changed hands? Or is this 2 different songs, one copyrighted by this copyright holder, one copyrighted by the other copyright holder? We're very happy to help you with that. Feel free to reach out to us about that. One license can only license the works and the types of usage that member publishers have allowed. So if a work isn't approved for podcast streaming usage, you need to go to the copyright holder directly for that permission. And again, you can hover here hover your cursor over those icons to see what they're for. All right. So when you use a copyrighted work and you report your copyrighted title, your reports translate directly into royalty payments for the copyright holders. So we ask that you report all the titles that you use. Okay, so Madison, what questions are we seeing in the chat?
Yes, absolutely. We've been getting so many great questions. A question that we received from somebody asking, I need to report songs from last summer, but the dates don't go back that far. What should I do? Is there a way to report for those dates? So our reporting system is an 18-week schedule, 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks in the future. So anything older than 12 weeks, you can report in any available week while you're catching up. Generally we recommend that you report as often as you can, but if something like this were to happen, if there's a change in music directors or an illness, we understand that life happens. And when catching up, getting those titles entered is what's most important, rather than inputting the correct date. We received another question. What do I do if I can't find a song in the database? So my first recommendation would be to make sure you're searching correctly. So as Siobhan mentioned, title and contributor's last name together in the title field is what's going to yield the best results. And if you're still not finding the title, then that is when you're going to want to double check that copyright holder. If they are a one license member publisher, you can submit a manual submission. If they are not a one license member publisher, then you will want to reach out to that copyright holder directly. Again, Google search and find their contact information and just reach out to them.
Great. Thanks, Madison. All right. So I'm going to turn things over to David so you can tell us about some additional features of the new website map that we're real excited about here at One License.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. As you may have noticed, our website's looking a little different these days. I think we've gotten some emails about it, actually. It's pretty cool. It's received a well-deserved update. I'm excited to share with you some of the highlights. So let me share my screen so I could take you for a quick tour. All right. So if you all have logged in recently, you'll see that this is your new landing page. I have so many windows open. Give me 1 second. This is your new landing page when you log into One License. The things that I want to highlight. Okay, so first, you'll notice that your name is here on the top, along with your organization. This is my test account, so it says One License David's test account. But it'll have the name of your organization there, along with your name on the top. So that's how you know that you're logged in. The cool feature that we are all excited about is if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see your license number here. We've had a few people email us once in a while, like, hey, I'm not sure if this is our license number, but is it A dash blah, blah, blah? Yes, it is. And now it's on your landing page, so it's conveniently placed here so you can see it. You can also see the status of your license, the licenses that you have. Coming back to the top, this My Account drop-down menu has changed a bit. The only thing that's different is search music and report usage are on the same line. They used to be separate lines, but now they're together. Everything else is the same. Report tracks, manage lists, contact us, you can log out. This home button will always take you to this landing page. So for example, if you're reporting something, you want to report something here, you go to report usage, you do your fantastic search as Siobhan demonstrated earlier, all are welcome. Title, contributor last name, you search, you do your thing, da 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 da. You report, and then if you wonder how do I get back to that landing page, that fabulous landing page, which One License works so hard on, there's a home button right here. You just click that guy, and you're back, depending on how fast your internet connection is. There you are. There's that. Is there anything else that I wanted to show you? I know I'm flying through this. I'm sure Siobhan highlighted this report usage on the top right-hand corner. Super easy. So you don't have to do what I did with the My Account report usage. You could just click this and it'll take you to the report usage page. Again, back to the home page for the landing. All right. You scroll down on the home page, on our new homepage, and you see these cool buttons here. My Account, where you can edit your organization details, your profile details, if you're the primary user on the account. Downloads, member publishers, a list of our member publishers. So you reach us through contact us, your list, pay my bill, yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. I thought this was cool. We get a lot of emails asking how to, or what information to include when you want to display licensing permissions. If you just click in this box, it'll copy it for you. Print snippet, copy to clipboard. And then you could just include it in your online videos or streams, or the description of your online videos or streams. So that's nice and handy. And you scroll down a little bit more, and then you have these news and announcements, which takes you to your blog, which I will now transition to talking about our blog. So let's go to our to get there manually, the address is news.onelicense.net. Okay, and then you'll land on a page that looks like this. News and announcements, yeah. So what our blog is it's a great resource for education, including topics such as copyright, reporting, and a whole myriad of other topics. If you've received emails, responses from the One License team, including myself, chances are you've seen a few, if not several, of our articles already. We like to include links to these articles in our emails, because we want to give you information that you can access at your own convenience and at your own pace. It's not that we're dismissing you at any point. We just want to give you more information, as our philosophy to helping our customers or our license holders is always based on education. So every article in our blog has been written by one licensed team member. So that's pretty cool. You know that it's coming from us. You can rest assured that the topics that we choose to write about are based on the most common inquiries that we receive from you all, our license holders. The entire blog is searchable. If you look here, there's a search bar. So you can search for any topics that you're wondering about. And if you enter something in here that you don't find an article about, shoot us an email. We'd love to take those suggestions. And we would love to write more blog articles for you, because that's, we always seek more opportunities to better your experience as our license holders. But yeah, a good place to start if you haven't explored our blog yet is this 2024 year in review. Madison will put that link in the chat. But it basically will show you the most popular articles that were viewed in 2024, which I think is cool. So it's like a good charcuterie board of our articles that you can explore if you haven't explored our blog yet. All right, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. For now, I'll pass it over to Madison, who will share some additional information about how our social media page, our newsletter, and about our social media page, our newsletter, and our call-in responses and other webinar opportunities.
Thanks, David. If you are enjoying all these helpful blog articles, please find us on Facebook. We share a lot of these blog articles here, as well as some other One License news. David can put in the chat the link to our page. So be sure to like the page, give it that blue thumbs up, and that way you'll see our posts in your newsfeed. Also, our monthly newsletters are sent out on the last Tuesday of each month and feature our latest blog posts, news from our member publishers, tips from the team, and much more. Later this year, we'll also be hosting our 201 and 301 webinars. The setting is similar to this, but the topics will be a little bit more advanced, so be sure to join us. One of our monthly events that you also may want to take advantage of is our call and response gathering. This is a 45-minute office hours with our staff that you can join, ask questions, or even just come and hang out and listen to other folks' questions. We have found that it's a great place to gather with colleagues, discuss, and learn. Our next call and response will be in March, so if you have more questions after today, please feel free to join us. You can email us at info@onelicense.net and we will get you signed up. And now we'll transfer to the remainder of our Q&A portion. David, what kinds of questions are you receiving?
I am receiving questions in the Q&A. All right, let's see. There is a question here. Sure, we can answer this. Reporting dual licenses from Jacob Williams. If a song is covered by both One License and CCLI, should both license numbers be reported in our worship materials? Obviously, being One License, we can't speak for CCLI. Sorry. Let me reread your question. If song is covered by both One License, CCLI. Okay. Obviously, being One License, we can't speak for CCLI and how their reports work, but you can rest assured that if you report a song through One License, that those reports directly help compensate the contributors of that title. And then if it's a One License title, you'll want to post the One License license number. Basically, for your organization, you'll just want to make sure that you're covered, regardless if it's through One License or CCLI. And then that leads to your second question. In what way, if any, do One License and CCLI licenses complement each other? So CCLI and One License are both licensing companies, and the difference between the two is mainly in the copyrights that are covered. You want to think about it. I like to think about it in terms of like Hulu and Netflix, right? Like if I want to watch a song on Netflix, I can't just go to Hulu and then try to look for it there. I know that it's a Netflix exclusive, show that I want to watch, so that I have to use Netflix to access that show. So in the same way, CCLI and one license cover different copyrights, and you'll just want to have the copyright licensing agency that covers the copyrights of the titles that you want to use in a way that requires copyright permissions. I know that was a lot. Siobhan, did I miss anything?
No, that was good. That was
Okay,
good.
perfect.
Yeah. So the main difference between CCLI and one license is which titles are covered. And while there is a little overlap, it's not a lot. You don't need to report it in both places, just in one place or the other. Yeah. I'm sure I just repeated everything that David said. Excellent.
We cover our backs here. That's what we do.
Right.
Any more questions that you're saying, Siobhan, Madison, that you want to take?
How about some questions from the registration document?
Oh, sure.
We received a question here on the registration doc. We plan on creating our own in-house hymnal for our congregation to use. How do we report that with our reprint permissions? So that's a great option for any organization to do. You can create these supplemental hymnals. You will want to make sure that the titles that you want to include are approved for reprint permissions, and you will want to report those titles every time you use the booklet. So remember, it's not about copies being made, it's about that item being used in services. So you're reporting how many services that you use that supplemental hymnal.
All right. Here's a question. What should I do if the copyright holder is not a one license member publisher? So the license permissions can only cover titles that our member publishers have added to the database. So if the copyright holder is not a one license member publisher, then it can't be covered by the license permissions, and you would need to contact that copyright holder directly. We sometimes have just, in our records, in our shared information, we sometimes have contact information for some copyright holders that we've, had a reason to search for before. And if we have that information, we're sure happy to share that with you. You could try a Google search. You could try the publisher where you found the work with the copyright holders, with the non-one license member publisher copyright holder's name.
Siobhan did touch on this earlier, but I want to elaborate a little bit more because it's a great question. When you find a hymn in the database that does not have files, am I still allowed to use that title? And if it is approved for a reprint, then you are approved to use that title. So again, one license is primarily a reporting service, secondarily a provider of resources. There are some titles in the database with no downloads available because our member publishers retain full control of their catalogs. So they decide which files are included. You are welcome to contact that copyright holder to see if they have a file available, but you're also welcome to make a photocopy of the title if you have it at your organization in the hymnal. You can also engrave it in a music notation software, or if you just need the text, you can just simply type the text into your worship aid yourself. But if you are finding it in the database and it's approved for reprint, then you are approved to use it, even if there's no files listed below it.
That's great. There's a question here about manual submissions, and does anybody remember? It's either in the 201 or the 301 webinar where we covered manual submissions kind of substantially. Okay, 201 webinar is about manual submissions, and the 301 webinar is about other searches. I think I led you astray. So David, can you drop those two links in the chat? So if you have questions about other ways to search the website, there was a question about how do I find a mass setting? I think there was a question about responsorial psalms. That's in the 301 webinar. And the 201 webinar covers manual submissions, how to report choral and instrumental arrangements, and a lot about the list feature in your one license account. So a little more than we could get into in depth in this webinar, but it's definitely covered in last year's 201 and 301 webinars? Ooh, these are really great questions. So Lucinda asks, I print text for all songs for one user who is blind and needs a 36-point font. She's asking if she should report that. So when we talk to our member publishers, they say that that is considered a reasonable accommodation. So for a person with a disability, so you wouldn't need to report that, but you don't do any harm if you do. I think our reporting statistic is 93% of our license holders report a title, in a given week, and we'd love for that to be 100%. So you're not doing any harm if you report a title for that kind of usage, but it's not required. Here we have a question about the podcast license. What does the streaming license cover? Does it cover posting a service on the church website indefinitely? What about posting it to an internal network? Please give an example of when a digital internet broadcast license is needed from the publisher. So the streaming license covers your live worship service that's being posted live. It would cover if you, I don't know if anybody's still doing this, maybe, I don't know, but early in the pandemic when we were, pre-recording things and then posting them on Sunday morning, it would cover that. And it also covers archived videos. So you posted the service, you live streamed it, or you otherwise posted it, and then you left it on your internet platform, whether social media or the church website or a web hosting platform, an internet-based platform. That's considered archived. And all of those things are covered so long as your license permissions are still in effect. And if you decide to cancel the podcast streaming license, then you need to take down those archived worship videos that include one license titles, or edit them so that those titles can no longer be heard or seen in the video. If you have images of the music, you would want to edit those out as well. So I hope that's helpful. Please give an example of when a digital internet broadcast license is needed from the publisher. I'm not sure I understand that question. So if you could send us an email, I don't have a name here. It says anonymous. If you could send us an email about that, we sure will look into that for you. Sandra says, for online worship services, we post a credit slide at the end of the service. Is that adequate or necessary? Yes, it's necessary, and posting one slide at the end is just fine. David, if you have enough fingers, can you drop the, I forget what it's called suddenly. I share it all the time. Is it creative uses or?
I can check.
It's not
Creative.
not just a quick fix. That one.
Not just a quick fix.
Yeah, that one gives some examples of how. So posting as a credit slide at the end is great. Putting it in the pinned comment or in the comment field is great. Putting it both places, great. At least one place, and it needs to include that information from the displaying permissions slide. Terry is asking, I heard about a section in the U.S. copyright law relating to a reporting exemption for certain services. Can you comment on that? So the exemption, I think that Terry's referring to is the performance rights religious exemption. So ordinarily, you need permission to use copyrighted works, but copyrighted music used in the context of a worship service, churches and other organizations, for worship services, you're exempt from seeking performance rights. But that's only for the in-person service when you're singing from the commercially published score, hymnal, or from memory. If you are making congregational reprints, whether in a paper worship aid or on a projection slide, if you're posting a worship service online, there are other ways of using copyrighted music that would still be in the context of a worship service. For those, the copyright holder is entitled to additional compensation. It's called an additional distribution of the copyrighted work. So you're exempt for the in-person worship service if you're, if all you're doing is singing from the commercially published hymnal. When you start doing other things with it, the copyrighted music, then the exemption no longer applies, and it's only for worship services. So it doesn't, it doesn't count for, it's not applicable to other situations. If you want to send us an email, we can send you a little more information about that if you need more of an answer than that. I mean, there's not much more to say, but I'd be happy to put that in writing for you and a little more coherently than sort of stumbling through a response on the fly.
All
Good
right.
question.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for asking such excellent questions. If we're not able to get to your question today, please send us an email and we'll get back to you. info@onelicense.net. Or again, you can log into your account and submit your question through the contact link in the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, thank you, Mason, Madison and David, or Mason. Thank you, Madison and David, so much. I really do appreciate all your hard work and the care that you offer to support our license holders together with the rest of our team. As we mentioned, a recording of this will be available, and the three of us and the rest of the One License team wish you and those you serve all the best in the weeks and seasons to come. Take care and goodbye, everyone.